Hello everybody, my name is Michaela and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about a topic that I absolutely love, and that is clowns. Before I get into things, I would like to say I'm sorry if there's a lot of background noises. A lot of people are being extremely noisy today, and I have my iPad with all my notes I compiled, so I will be referring to that instead of talking on the top of my head. I get it, not everybody loves clowns, but I do, and I kind of think it stems from childhood. You see, when I was younger, my parents took me to the circus and it was magical. My little mind was blown by what these performers could do, and admittedly it's been many years and I can't tell you what they did, but I remember very clearly that is the point where I developed a strong admiration for clowns. The reasoning for that is that I think that it's just the concept of somebody dedicating their life to bring joy and laughter into the world is just so wild to me, and I love them for that. So today I would like to tell you where these colorful quirky fellows originated from. When you hear the word clown, what is the first image that pops into your head? It could be a white face, colorful hair, oversized clothing, and all of that is true for modern day clowns, but it wasn't always the case. You see, the first instance of a clown character was actually back in ancient Egypt. Dangas, which were African pygmies, performed in royal courts to entertain pharaohs and the royal families. Typically, they would have worn leopard skins with a mask, and their routines consisted of dancing and imitating the gods. Needless to say, their impressions were a big hit. Interesting fact that I learned while researching is that Dangas served a social-religious role, as priests would sometimes incorporate the art of clowning. And although that might sound quite strange to some people, we can actually relate them to chaplain clowns or ministry clowns. And yes, since the 80s to present day, there has been a group of clowns who have dedicated to Okay, I'm not laughing at them, I'm laughing with them, okay? There's a group of clowns out there in the world who teach Christian theology while being clowns. And they cheer up places like nursing homes, orphanage, outreach programs, and that's just to name a few places. Clown, 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 clown. I keep saying the word, but where did it originate from? I am not 100% sure. There's conflicting information about that, but what I can tell you is that it all originated from the word peasant, meaning a simple person. And we can link the way that a peasant was viewed to understand more of the meaning of clown. They were lower class, they were boorish, they were clumsy, and the character of the clown is deeply rooted in the archetype of the fool. While some people agree that the clown and the jester are basically the same thing, I disagree, and I'm gonna tell you why. Like I said, the clown is the fool. They have this blind, naive trust in the world, and I feel that what makes them so lovable. However, with a jester, they are more of a trickster. They perform tricks, yes, but it also feels like there's a layer of deception to them, and that could be at the expense of you or others or themselves. And I acknowledge court jesters, but I don't really view them as true clowns. Don't hate me for that, just my opinion. But I'm getting kind of sidetracked. So outside of Egypt, clowns also appeared in Roman and Greek theater. Those performers were known as rustic buffoons, and we see yet again rustic was not another word for peasant. It's all connected. Just to give you a little visual, Greek clowns were more bald head and they wore a lot of padding to appear like large and chubby, and who doesn't love that? While Roman theater had like 4 different kinds of clowns. I'm not gonna get into describing each, but they all exaggerated the human form, and they had their own version of the Hobo clown, which I'll get into later in the video, but their version was super ableist. So we can better understand why clowns are viewed as down on the luck poor characters. Actually, the first instance of clown, the word clown in English, was in Shakespeare's plays. But his clowns followed more jester characteristics, and they served as the comic relief in his plays for more serious scenes to help balance out stuff, so to say. And clowns then begin to resemble modern clown until the advent of Commedia Dell'arte. For me not butchering that word because I don't speak Italian, I'm just gonna refer that as CD for the rest of the video. CD basically means professional theater, so there's just a repeating set of characters. You understand? Good. All the background noises are kind of tripping me up, so I just want to read one paragraph directly off of my iPad for y'all. One such character was the Harlequin, a sly but clever fellow who was grouped together with various buffoons and bumpkin archetypes. Another type was the Pierrot, a sad clown who appeared without a mask. Actually, the Pierrot is quite iconic, as they were the first clown to paint the entire face white. They were tasked with expressing life and love without speaking, sparking inspiration for the creation of mimes and future generations of clowns. Interestingly enough, in traditional Trinidad and Tobago masks, there's a satirical descendant of the Pierrot known as the Pierrot Grenade. They are seen as the supreme jester in carnival, as they are a finely dressed masquerader and deeply learned scholar. Their appearance and style completely contrast that of the Pierrot, as their costume is made by attaching multicolored pieces of cloth to form a gong-like costume paired with a hood and painted face. With their whip made of guava or hibiscus, they delight in spelling words as well as rhymes and allegories. It's strange how, growing up in Trinidad, I knew of the Pierrot Grenade, but I never associated with him being a clown, and it's super interesting to see that he's actually a satirical descendant of somebody so important, and I feel like not a lot of people would make that connection because they just don't know. Somebody who you might know more about is Joseph Grimaldi. Because if you listen to clowns talk about clowning, they're most likely gonna cite him. He was one of the most famous clowns, and his tale is quite sad because Joey, well, he's better known as Joey, was able to obtain fame at a cost. He performed in numerous successful pantomimes at the time, but coming down at the end of his career, both his health and his relationship with the theater deteriorated. After many years of energetic clowning and sustaining injuries, he kind of became this recluse, impoverished, alcoholic shell of a man, and sadly he outlived both his wife and his son before dying at the age of 58. Alright, I know the video is kind of long, so let's take a minute to just take a break and look at my little clown painting. I told you I love clowns, I wasn't lying. I painted this in December last year. You could probably tell I was feeling very sad, and what better way than to paint little tiny sad boy. If you recognize the background, it was inspired by a random picture I saw on Instagram, but he's so cute, he's so sad, he's so precious. Look at it. Trying to frame it for you all. Alright, did you all enjoy my painting? Of course you did. I'm a great painter. So, back to the history lesson now. Clowns took on their classic look in 17th century with the circuses in England. They had the Harlequinade. So the Harlequinade was a pantomime show similar to CD. Pantomime is a specific type of entertainment where people make elaborate gestures without the use of words to express themselves. Similar to the Italians, a Harlequin was paired with a goofy bumpkin who was named Clown with capital C. And remember how I said that I couldn't locate the exact origin of the word clown? Some people attribute it to the British because there's a Harlequin played with a clown with a capital C. That must be where clowns came from. But some people also believe the name came from a French clown named Claude who emigrated to England. And there are even people out there who think the origin is Old German for, once again, the word peasant. So no matter where you think clown originated from, they're all kind of connected in a way. Circuses were super popular and they spread like wildfire across the globe. Austrian clown Tom Belling Sr. is credited with the creation of the Auguste Clown or Red Clown. And don't worry, I will be describing all the different types, well, not all, but the different types of clowns after the history lesson. So he was responsible for the introduction of the bright red nose, and that is actually what most people associate with clowning. Can you imagine a clown without a bright red nose? Most likely not. It just seems weird. And most clowns are influenced by either the white clown archetype or the red clown archetype. Okay, this is the part where I talk about the semi-problematic clown known as the North American Tramp or Hobo Clown. So the Hobo Clown drew inspiration from the Auguste Clown and wore ill-fitting clothing and big old clown shoes. And they are kinda racist. Well, the origin of it is. So there's a video I watched called Clowns Are Racist by Dainty Funk. You can look it up yourselves. You can just write Clowns Are Racist and it will be the first video that pops up in the search bar. But in case you guys don't feel like watching it, I'm just gonna summarize it so I can get a point across to you. Part 1. History of Clownface. In this short segment, she just states that all clowns are racist and there are 4 types of clowns. And then she goes on to briefly describe the Whiteface, the Auguste, and the character clown. part 2, the racism, she lists the final type of clown, the Hobo Clown, as the most explicitly racist one, saying it was popularized in the 1870s by the minstrel show actors James McIntyre and Thomas Heath. And I'm just gonna interject and stray from her video and just acknowledge that I did not know much about minstrel shows, and I feel like there are gonna be some people who watch this video and also do not know what a minstrel show is. So in case you are confused, minstrelsy is an indigenous American theatrical form of racist entertainment. A lot of words there. Developed in the 19th century, white actors would blacken their face and perform comedy sketch, variety acts, dancing, and musical performances that specifically depicted people of African descent. So that's where Blackface came about, and it is horrific. And now that we're both horrified and up to speed, let's go back to Dainty. So she said that Hobo Clowns was a direct call to a lot of black people who after emancipation were homeless. Oftentimes they would wear ragged clothes and they were sad because they didn't have a home. And most people weren't looking to hire former slaves because, racism. So she links these minstrel shows to the aesthetic of the Hobo Clown. Like I said, they had tattered clothing and soot on their faces, and that was similar to the way McIntyre and Heath did Blackface. Part 3. White laughter as white supremacy. So here she explains why she thinks clowns symbolize racism, especially in America. She then goes on to use the Dutch St. Nicholas holiday character Black Pete or Black Peter. I know she says it's from Sweden, but she made another video correcting that. As an example of how a harmless character reinforces black men as scary and act in slave-like roles. Okay, so this is like second-hand information from her because I didn't read the story. So her point was that there's Santa Claus and then there's Black Pete, and Black Pete is in charge of like tugging all the presents around and beating children if they're naughty, which doesn't seem bad until you understand that as a child you are going to inevitably fear Black Pete and in turn fear blackness, because nobody wants a scary black man to come up and beat them around Christmas time, And in her research, the only category of clown that she found that admitted to obvious borrowing of black features was the Hobo Clown, and that is supported by historical evidence. She then wraps up the video with Clowncore and proclaims that she considers black people dressing up as clowns as a reclamation of power. So yeah, blackface minstrels are an extremely racist type of clown. They don't exist anymore, luckily, and as a society I'm pretty sure we've progressed since then and left that back in the dark side of human history. So the Hobo Clown, on the other hand, is still around, and as an Indian girl from the Caribbean, I don't feel like it's my place to comment on whether I feel like the Hobo Clown is racist or not. Fast forward to the 1920s, Charlie Chaplin begins performing his own style of clown theater thanks to the creation of the motion picture. Now suddenly silent film has become this avenue for a glorious heyday of clowning. Slapstick humor and clowning becomes international. Very renowned clown Slava Polonin, I love this man in a National Geographic documentary talks about how in awe of Chaplin he was. So we see how influential silent film was on the art of clowning. I'm actually really sad I will never see Slava's snow show. It looks so cool. I'm gonna insert a clip here. Wasn't that cool? I love it. So traveling all the way to French now. Napoleon has outlawed social commentary and satire everywhere except for one place, and that is, as you can guess, the circus. So English pantomimes came to the French circus and clowns served as the humor of the people. Later, in the 1930s, France introduced the Contre-Pied Clown. So in a trio, the Contre-Pied Clown was identified by their oversized clothing and shoes and extremely foolish behavior. The history lesson is almost over, I promise, so I'll just speed it up by reading. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, circus was being completely revolutionized with innovative forms. Like any experimental art form, there would always be a push to try new things and explore new forms. Cirque du Soleil is a great example of this. They do not rely on stock characters like the Whiteface, Auguste, or Hobo Clown. Instead, they use radical new forms of clowning and clown theater. Now, newer clowns have the chance to look back on history and pick and choose what they want to influence and how they want to shape the world of clowning. Ta-da! Now you know the hilarious history of clowns. I'm sure I missed a few things, but this is the best I could do while researching, and I did try to squeeze as much information as I could into that. So before y'all rush off to the comments and be like, you forgot this and blah blah blah, this is inaccurate, which I appreciate if I did get anything wrong, but the video is not over yet. I am going to go over the different types of clowns, but as concisely as I can. So we're starting off with the Whiteface or the White Clown. They are symbolic of thought. So the classic European Whiteface is the most majestic and beautiful of all the Whitefaces. You'll even hear other clowns refer to them as elegant. Isn't that cute? I love that. Think of CD, where the Pierrot is dressed in loose, simple black and white costume, often with a hat or skull cap, and the Harlequin in a beautifully tailored multicolored diamond or triangle pattern costume. And they had their own hat, which to me resembled a crescent moon. The design of the Harlequin was super popular among Western artists. So most of you guys may have made this connection already to Batman's Harlequin, who in her original design looked like a Harlequin clown. The second type of whiteface is the straight whiteface. So it is similar to the classic, but they add more color and are overall less sad. So an example of this would be Glenn Gordon Frosty and his cute little felt hat. The third type of whiteface is the grotesque whiteface. Aptly named, they are the zaniest type of whiteface. They have the most color and cheer and exaggerated features and clothing. The final type of whiteface is actually the mime. So they are an elegant clown known for miming, emoting through body language and facial expressions. They tend to stick to three colors: black, white, and red, sporting their iconic white gloves, horizontal stripes, and hat that is most commonly a beret. I would like to say, please note that you do not laugh at mimes unless the routine specifically is tailored to making you laugh, so be respectful. Next, we have the Tramp Clown, also known as the Hobo Clown. So this type of clown is uniquely American. The Tramp Clown originated with the hobos who rode the rails during the Great Depression. That contradicts with the Clowns Are Racist videos I spoke about earlier. And just so you'll know, Emancipation Proclamation happened in 1863 and the Great Depression happened from 1929 to 1939. Although those are two origins, that doesn't mean that both can't be true, because historical evidence supports the influence of vaudeville and minstrel shows of the 1800s and early 1900s. There are three types of tramp clowns. They're all very similar in attire. So let's just go through them quick because not a lot of people like tramp clowns. The first type of tramp clown is exclusively male, the classic tramp. He uses black or grey to represent soot and his beard. He's got a big red nose and his cheeks and forehead are almost pink color, symbolic of being sunburnt. The eyes and frowning mouth are highlighted in white. Their costume is quite elaborate actually. Tattered clothing consisted of various materials, dark battered hat, tattered socks and shoes, old gloves, and worn-out shirt accompanied with a tie. He is truly a sad clown. Next, we have the Hobo or the Vagabond, also exclusively male. Unlike the classic tramp who fell into poverty, the Vagabond chose to be a tramp. Previously a businessman, scholar, or playboy that got fed up with life and abandoned society. He'll work if necessary, but he is overall content with his life. The Vagabond is also considered to be the only true type of American clown. The makeup is the same as the classic tramp, except the eyebrows and mouth are turned up to reflect a smile. Their costume is also almost exact, except for the dark suit, tuxedo, tails, or just shirt and pants. An example of this would be Red Skelton as Freddy the Freeloader. The last tramp is the Bag Lady. She's just the female version of the tramp or hobo without the beard. She's like the hoarder of the group. She wears multiple layers also, from dresses to jacket, scarf, hat, pieces of fake jewelry, and she's called the bag lady for a reason. She always has a bag or cart filled with her possessions. The Auguste Clown, aka the Red Clown, doesn't have as defined subcategories as the other types of clowns I previously just mentioned. So they are kind of a mix of the Whiteface and the Hobo Clown. They don't have a fully white face. Instead, uses flesh tones white, black, red, blue, and even yellow. They're super colorful and have a big red nose and extravagant mismatched costume. Their red nose and human face is symbolic of heart or emotion. They're there to connect you with joy. Most private children's birthday party clowns are Auguste. Look at the picture of Cookie and Bozo from the Bozo Show. By now you should be able to tell the difference between an Auguste clown and a grotesque whiteface clown. The last type of clown is the character clown. So there are many variations you can have from a character clown. Usually their makeup and costumes depict a specific occupation, hobby, or some other easily identifiable character, and can pull inspiration from the Whiteface, Auguste, or Tramp Clown. What sets them apart is their personality. They're usually playing a role in harmony with another clown. I know what you're thinking, but Michaela, there's more than 4 types of clowns, and you would be correct. Those are the main 4 types of clowns you would have listed across the internet. Jesters come from medieval time and haven't changed much. They're a traveling performer who entertains people with tricks. They most resemble the Harlequin but have a distinctive top and pants as well as their own fool's cap. Rodeo Clowns have their own specialized brands of clowning. The existence of rodeo clowns coincided with competitive rodeo in the early 1900s. They play an important role as entertainment for the audience, distraction if anything goes wrong, and the protectors for bull riders. You gotta respect them for putting their lives at risk for every single show they perform at. In terms of outfit and makeup, rodeo clowns typically look like the cowboy version of an Auguste clown or Tramp clown. Creepy or evil clown. Hey, look at me. Look at me. There is no such thing as an evil clown. I get it. Not a lot of people like clowns, and they sadly might not have had a wonderful introduction like I did. Some people had a scary birthday clown, or they watched a horror movie that had a clown in it and that scarred them for life. I do not watch horror movies because I know I am a scaredy cat. So I'm not going to include any scary imagery that might be disturbing for myself. Anyway, scary clowns are something relatively new and only date back to the 1980s, and that is just 42 years ago. As I've discussed, clowns throughout time have played a social-religious role, commentary for politics, current events, and human life, especially suffering, as will overall bring us a joy to humanity. There are good clowns. It was very unlikely for large groups of people to dislike them. much less be afraid of a bumbling buffoon. So how did the butt of the joke turn into this horrifying creature of malice? I'll say the first villain clown character was the Joker. He first appeared in the Batman comics in the 1940s, and I'm sure you're all familiar with him. There's a lot of various backstories for the Joker. Most popularly, his white face, bright green hair, and red lips are attributed for him falling into a vat of toxic waste, which subsequently drove him insane. But you know, it could be that or society. The Joker is just a fictional character though. In 1981, in America, something very real and very scary was happening. Clown pedophiles. It was spring of 1981. Imagine, you're a school child when all of a sudden you hear a voice call out to you. You turn around and what do you see? Oh, why is just a friendly clown offering you candy if you get into the back of his nondescript black van? Run, little Timmy, that's not your friendly entertainer, that's a pedophile. Now, this wasn't a one-off event. On May 6th, my birthday, school committees, area police, and concerned parents were ringing down the police with complaints. One guy even reported seeing a man dressed like a clown but naked from the waist down. Despite numerous sightings, the police were never successful in capturing any of the child molesters. When the pedos finally realized that candy wasn't going to work, they began to threaten them instead. Although dressing like a clown was merely just a disguise, this soured the image of clowns, and a lot of people in the US started associating clowns with this behavior, ultimately spurring them to believe in killer clowns. Tragically, the most well-known killer clown was American serial killer and pederast John Wayne Gacy. You see, he actually was a clown in Chicago, Illinois, going by the name of Patches the Clown or Pogo the Clown. This gave him access to a lot of young boys, and in the short span of 6 years, he had 33 victims, which he tortured, abused, and murdered before his arrest in 1978. Gacy was sentenced to death in 1980 and was executed 14 years later in 1944. So 5 years after the Van Clown incident, well-known American author Stephen King drew inspiration for his novel It. Released in 1986, It is a horror novel recounting the experiences of 7 children who were terrorized by an evil entity who took on the appearance of a combination of different white face features. This perpetuated fear and sort of opened the gateway for more scary clowns to be incorporated into media. And actually, the scary clown is seen as a staple character for Halloween. Another mass uproar of scary clown sightings happened in 2016. Izzy made a great video titled The Bizarre 2016 Clown Invasion. Basically, it was a mix of attention seekers, pranksters, child predators, and actually very dangerous people. Thanks to the internet, the creepy clown phenomena not only spread throughout America, but globally. As you can imagine, professional clowning suffered. The children who were traumatized by clowns grew up, and new parents had to choose whether that their child might be traumatized or abducted by a clown. And with public spaces being restricted since 2019, I am unsure how viable it is to be a clown in 2022. Despite all the pushback, I believe that as long as there is sadness, there will be joy, and clowning will never truly go away. Clowns have always been a part of my life, and I'm pretty sure they've always been in your life too, even if you haven't recognized it. I am certain somebody out there also grew up watching movies like Mera Namu Joka when they were little. And as much as I love real clowns, there's a number of fictional characters that are inspired by clowns that I absolutely adore. So Gamzee Makara from Homestuck, Pietro from Animal Crossing, Buggy the Clown, Don Quixote Rosinante, Bon Clay, and Caesar Clown, all 4 from One Piece. The Clown Trainer from Pokemon Shining Pearl, Penny, Billy, Tim, and Steve from Big Top Burger, and Jojo from JoJo's Circus. Before I end, I would like to mention Clowncore. It focuses more on the aesthetics and the value of a clown rather than who the clown is. So you see people who dress like clowns but aren't professional clowns. Think of kind of like the Insane Clown Posse or cutesy eagles who like to dress up like clowns. That was a long video. I tried my best to squeeze so much different information in. I actually tried to film this video before, but the makeup I did, I think it was a little too jarring. I might post more pictures on my Instagram story. This is more subtle. I don't know if the camera picked it up, but I hope you enjoyed this and learned a little bit about clowning, clown history, types of clowns, and have more of an appreciation for them and don't see them as something scary or weird or just dismiss them as being dumb or foolish. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later.